Well, this has been rather otherworldly to sit and watch this. It's like you've entered a parallel universe. I mean, how this case is going forward, I just cannot explain. You had a disbarred, convicted serial perjurer on the stand, matter-of-factly detailing how he stole tens of thousands of dollars from his client. And what is really funny is then the prosecutor gets up and says, I just want you to tell the jury, once again, you're not charged with anything, right? And I wanted to stand up and say, yeah, but you should have.
What is the problem? There is no crime. This judge doesn't deserve to wear a robe.
Both Jonathan Turley and Judge Jeanine are absolutely right. There can be no doubt that Judge Merchan is in the tank. He wants to convict Trump. The entire Trump trial is an absolute sham, and Judge Merchan should have recused himself from the beginning. The Judicial Ethics Committee should make Judge Merchan take off the black robe forever. He is obviously compromised, and he's not even trying to hide it. Judge Merchan allowed the prosecution, Alvin Bragg, Colangelo, and the rest of the cohorts, to hide Michael Cohen's crimes from the public, all in order to get Trump.
How can this be stunning?
Well, it's stunning because they have a political agenda, but I have always said that Michael Cohen is the linchpin of this case. The linchpin of this case has been attacked, and his credibility is totally destroyed. I mean, today everybody was blown away when he admitted, yeah, I stole $60,000. He should be indicted for grand larceny. And the amazing thing is, the Southern District knew about it, the Cy Vance, the DA in Manhattan, knew about it, Alvin Bragg knew about it before the statute of limitations ran, but instead what...
Understand what she just said there. They knew about Michael Cohen stealing $60,000 from Donald Trump before the statute of limitation ran out. They could have charged him. They looked the other way on Michael Cohen's felonious act of stealing $60,000 so they could prosecute a misdemeanor. Think about that. $60,000. This guy admits to the state prosecutor, the federal prosecutor, yeah, I stole it. I had to. I had to pocket that money. I needed it. All right, we won't bring that up then. Think about that.
They do is they catapult him to the centerpiece of the corruption that Donald Trump is engaged in. Look, the bottom line here is that Michael Cohen pretty much canceled himself out. But the defense made a decision. We're going to call Costello. People will criticize it. I contend it was the right decision to make. Cohen.
Oh, absolutely right decision. You saw what happened. People may criticize the decision to call Costello, but it was worth the price of admission. If Costello showing up, think about that. If Costello showing up caused Judge Merchan and Michael Cohen and everybody else to just completely disintegrate, to dissolve because he looked at you with a side eye, he rolled his eyes and went, jeez, and it caused you to break? Oh, it was definitely the right decision. It was worth it just for people to see that.
Is the most credible witness I've heard so far in this case. But this goes to the issue of the judge and the important role that a judge plays in each and every other case. A judge doesn't just decide, is this evidence going to be admitted? Will I allow it or not allow it? Will I charge this? Will I charge that? The judge sets the tone of the room. And this judge is so corrupt.
I love that she roasted him. Roast him. Go ahead, Jeanine.
He should have recused himself. I'm not going to go through it again, but the prosecution knew he was on their side. Every time Costello tried to talk, the prosecution objected, interrupting the story so that there is no coherent story in front of the jury, to the point where Costello goes, and this guy Costello is well respected in New York. He goes, geez, and the judge flips out.
Just from that, just from going, geez, man, and rolling his eyes, the judge flips because he knows the jury can see it. And the jury knows that this guy is an esteemed, credentialed lawyer in New York City. They understand that because they had to voir dire and tell everybody who this guy was and why he was important. And I'm sure over the last week, they've seen him on television. He's been basically on every network that he could get on, He's been on almost every YouTube channel where people have clipped. And he was out there letting people know this guy's an idiot, the fix is in, he's lying. And Judge Merchant absolutely lost his shit.
The judge doesn't just say, keep your client under control. He sends the jury out. He clears the courtroom and starts screaming, keep this guy in line. I'm not going to take this anymore. And he admonishes him as soon as he takes the stand and then rips him apart. However, he gets in this adult porn star who does what for a living, and he lets her talk about everything from, how brief the encounter was to whether or not he was a condom and all this other nonsense. This jury now knows, as a result of the way he's handling Costello, the defense's first witness, that this judge is not on the level.
Bingo. At this point, everybody saw it. The reporters, the jury, the cops, the bailiffs, everybody saw, hey man, this stinks. This don't look right. Why are you freaking out? Why are you clearing the courtroom? What are you concerned about? Why is this guy rolling his eyes bothering you when we just saw a porn star up there saying all kinds of crazy stuff? That didn't bother you. You just sat back and let it happen. You let Michael Cohen lie after lie after lie. Bob Costello, a well-respected attorney, gets on the stand and basically, without even having to say anything, he went, jeez. And he rolled his eyes, and that caused you to lose it in front of the jury. Think about that. 2 nonverbal actions caused this guy to completely, absolutely melt down in front of the jury. So he's going to be pissed. Understand, tomorrow morning, tonight, he's pissed off. He's going to come after Trump really hard. He's not going to dismiss this case. In fact, he's going to try and push harder for a conviction. You watch. You'll see what happens. This guy was embarrassed thoroughly to the entire country.
And for those people who say it wasn't worth it calling Costello, the signal sent to this jury is that this judge is definitely not on the level, and that Michael Cohen, who went from, I got nothing to give the prosecution, nothing to give them, about to kill himself, has had a lobotomy, because now, in spite of the fact that the president listened to everything he said, and in spite of the fact that he's a serial liar, stole and surreptitiously recorded him, Michael Cohen is not to be believed.
In addition, Merchant interfered with Trump's defense by constantly sustaining the prosecution's objections. Then Merchant went even a little bit further. He refused to allow Trump's defensive team to call expert witnesses.
Well, this has been rather otherworldly to sit and watch this. It's like you've entered a parallel universe. I mean, how this case is going forward, I just cannot explain. You had a disbarred, convicted serial perjurer on the stand, matter-of-factly detailing how he stole tens of thousands of dollars from his client. And what is really funny is then the prosecutor gets up and says, I just want you to tell the jury, once again, you're not charged with anything, right? And I wanted to stand up and say, yeah, but you should have.
Yeah, you should have. In addition to stealing the money from Trump, one of the things that Turley didn't mention, because there's been so many lies, is that he actually recorded his clients' phone calls, and then they played those in court. This guy has done so many things wrong, talking about Cohen here, that the judge allowed him to get away with. It's criminal on its own.
Just admitted that he committed grand larceny. He told you that. And you instead decided he was more valuable to pursue a dead misdemeanor on a bookkeeping violation.
Understand this. The crimes that Michael Cohen actually admitted to doing are worse than the crimes that they're charging Trump with.
So, New York state law, statute of limitations on larceny, I believe, is 5 years. So Cohen said that knowing that the statute's already run and that he probably would not be charged by Bragg. But should Bragg at the very least look into this, Jonathan?
Well, that's the question. He's been under investigation for many, many years. So when he admitted to it doesn't really mean the fact that they couldn't have determined this. But the interesting thing
They just blew it off. No big deal. We understand you did a felony, that you stole $60,000 from Trump. Don't worry about it. Just help us get him.
The thing about Cohen is how really blasé this all is. Yeah, I stole money from my client. I lied repeatedly. I violated all of these oaths. And people are just sort of nodding, and you feel like you're the only one in the room saying, this is not normal.
Absolutely. I love that he said that. None of this is normal. None of what's going on in this courtroom is normal. Every single legal expert who's credible, not someone who's just in the tank for the Democrat Party, every credible legal expert. I have a lot of lawyers who are friends of mine. Some of them who are Democrats are like, I can't even fathom what's going on here. I've never seen anything like it. If you talk to somebody who's actually, not a lunatic, they can clearly see this is not normal.
Hey, this is not how trials are supposed to go. And I have to say, I was really struck today by what I consider to be fairly one-sided rulings. He hammered the defense, sustaining a lot of objections, some of which I still don't understand the basis for his order.
One of the things I talked to my wife about, which was really kind of funny, is how many times we have heard over the last couple of weeks from credible, professional, experienced people when they're asked questions by the media about this entire case. And they say, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You're a lawyer, you've been a lawyer for 20 years. What the heck just happened? I don't know. I've got no explanation for it. How can that be? How can so many professionals sit back and go, none of this makes any sense whatsoever. We don't understand what this judge is doing. These are professionals. Jonathan Turley himself is a professor at George Washington University. Alan Dershowitz, so many different attorneys, and they're like, I don't even have it. I can't even give you an explanation as to what is going on.
And he was far more solicitous towards the prosecution. But the biggest problem that we saw today is one of the reversible issues. Once again, he allowed the prosecutors and Cohen to talk about how there are campaign violations in the case. And there are no campaign violations. Yeah.
So let's talk about the defense's strategy here.
So now, just want to stop that for a second. There are no campaign finance violation, and you're going to let Michael Cohen explain to the jury how it is a campaign violation? That's absurd.
One person that they would like to call is Brad Smith. He's a Federal Elections Commission official. And they want him to testify about the difference between a campaign contribution, campaign expense, whatever, pointing, to some degree to the potential underlying crime here. Because
you mean an actual expert on election finance laws. He won't allow it.
we still don't know what it is. Yet the judge wants to put strict limitations on his testimony.
Well, with the federal election law expert, a lot of judges would probably reach that same conclusion because it is the domain of the judge to say what the law is. The problem is what this judge has done with the rest of the case. The reason they're asking to call an expert is because Merchan has made a mess of this case. I promise you that jury believes there are federal election law violations here.
Now, see, if he had stopped this at the beginning and told the jury what was and what isn't a campaign finance violation, then they wouldn't have to call an expert. But this judge just let people spew and talk about what they think is a campaign finance violation. So now the jury is tainted.
As a fact. And Merchan has allowed that to occur. Defense is going to want to be heard at length. I believe that there are layers of reversible error in this case. And what is often the case is you see judges committing errors like this, and then they try to sort of do a Charlie Brown with the football motion, and at the last minute put in an instruction to clean it up. I don't think they can clean it up here. So what Merchan is suggesting is I'll instruct the jury on all of the references to campaign violations.
The judge, Merchan, at the end of the trial, after they have heard all of this stuff for 4 or 5 weeks, hey, forget what you think you heard. You're only allowed to consider this. Just by human nature, that's not going to work.
I think that's coming really too late. This jury has been told over and over again, from opening argument to pecker to Michael Cohen, to the prosecutors. The judge has allowed them to say there were election violations. I'm quite convinced that that jury believes that there were election violations, even though none have occurred in the...
None have occurred. There has been not a single shred of confirming evidence that there have been any campaign finance violations. But as Jonathan Turley just said, you can bet your ass the jury does believe that because they've been allowed to be programmed and manipulated by Judge Merchan to just think that's what the case is.
This case with regard to Trump.
Wow, just to quote you, the trial is riddled reversible error. The judge has shown serious bias in his rulings. His rulings are often difficult to square with the rules of evidence. Costello is losing patience with the judge, as many of us were. That's not a glowing review from Turley.
Yet everything he said is 100% true. The only thing that Judge Merchan has done correctly is to act as the puppet for the Biden administration. It's absolutely disgusting, and the level of insanity and absurdity that we're seeing in a courtroom is only surpassed by the level of insanity and absurdity that we are seeing by some in the media. Here's a hint for you. If you have any friend, coworker, even family who can look you in the eye and say that Trump has had a fair trial, run away. Absolutely run away. Tell them to lose your friggin' number. They're lying to you. They're looking you in the face and lying to you. At some point, we all have to admit what's happened over the last couple of years has broken America. And some people are not going to be able to be repaired. There's no coming back for some of these people. Any honest person can see clearly that they are stacking the deck against Trump. It's not even been a fair fight.
This judge, I mean, you don't need a prosecutor if you have a judge like this. This judge is not on the level. He is not on the level. He should not be the one who was handpicked to try this case. You know, we always pride ourselves in saying there's a wheel and judges get picked anonymously. That didn't happen here.
Understand this as well. This guy, after going through all of this with Trump, and you see how he basically handled Trump, he's got Steve Bannon next. So if he did this to Trump, Steve Bannon doesn't stand a chance. He's gonna get convicted.
And everything that this Judge Merchan has done is indicated that he is favoring the prosecution. And there's no question judges will favor one side or the other. But you don't need a prosecutor with a judge like this.
He's not favoring the prosecution. He is the prosecution. He's not favoring the prosecution. He's working on behalf of the prosecution. He's not favoring the prosecution. He has already been told, obviously, this is what you're going to do. Your daughter is raising $90 million for the Democrat Party. Everybody in your inner circle has donated to your daughter's company, which is a whole other thing people need to dig in and find out. How did this woman all of a sudden create this digital media company and get $90 million worth of consulting clients to go follow her? And her dad just happens to be the judge who's presiding over the Trump trial. Kidding me?
The way he allowed Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels to testify, and yet every question by the defense of Costello, every objection was sustained. He wouldn't allow Costello to tell the story. The fact that he gags Trump and not Cohen, and the fact that, you know, he says that, you know, I'm going to strike this guy's testimony or hold him in contempt, because he should be held in contempt.
They were terrified of what Costello was saying. He couldn't get out a sentence without the prosecution objecting, and he didn't want to hear it. He automatically would sustain it. Nope, this guy's not going to talk. This was not a fair, objective judge whatsoever, and the jury saw all of this.
He handled this case. This judge is out of control, but more than that, to allow this case of a former president and possible future president to go on for weeks on end, to not sequester them and say, you know what, folks, we're going to get a verdict here. I'm going to charge you, and we're going to make a decision, and you're going into that deliberation room.
Let's get it done.
Did you know that the jury wasn't sequestered? It means every single night after court, they could just go home. And the only credo, the only thing he said to them was, don't look at the media. Don't talk to anybody about the case. Are you freaking kidding me? It's arguably one of the biggest cases ever, bigger than the OJ trial, and you're saying that you are telling the jurors that they just have to not talk about it? You're kidding me, right? And now you're breaking for a week and telling them to go home, spend Memorial Day, do whatever you need to do, but just don't talk about this case. We'll get back to you in a week or so. Wow.
Get it done is right. But you see, he plays into the whole argument that this trial is to keep Trump off the campaign trail. That a day here, a half a day there, when in the end, and he says to both sides, look, you ought to work on the jury charge together. No, I asked for this, you asked for that. That this judge would not allow, I think his name is Ben Smith, the head of the Federal Election Commission, to not testify is stunning, because he allowed Michael Cohen and David Pecker to testify, basically the Russians, but won't let the head of the Federal Election Committee come in and say these are not violations, is stunning.
So Brad Smith is I don't know what his job is now, but he was involved with the Federal Election Commission. If anybody knows about campaign finance violations, this guy would know. Not Michael Cohen, not Alvin Bragg, not the judge. This guy who helped write the law would be the person to bring in. But the judge won't let him testify.
This case has unbelievable reversible error.
Did the state prove beyond a reasonable doubt every element of the case that they present?
Then let me.
One problem with that, did they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the case they put on? They haven't stated the crime. If you haven't stated the crime, what the hell are you proving? You've proved that Judge Merchan is a nut and shouldn't be on a bench and should have recused himself. You're proven that Alvin Bragg is merely a DEI hire and it's a sham that he's even involved in this, but you haven't proved a crime because you never stated a crime. A lot of people don't grasp that. As of today, they still have not predicated. They have not shown what this second crime is. The first crime wouldn't even count. You know, this bookkeeping error that they're talking about, the statute of limitations has already expired on that. So if the first crime that they think they had is expired, what is the second crime? What are you proving?
Let me ask you this. Did the prosecution prove to your satisfaction that Donald Trump told someone in the bookkeeping department, in the bowels of the Trump organization, how to identify this payment, who to write the check to, and what it was for? I haven't heard one witness testify to that.
None. There have been no witnesses who have testified to any campaign finance violation. Not one. Not a single person has testified to that. So how can you even prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the crime has taken place when you really haven't even tried that case? You haven't presented any evidence of such a crime being, taken place. So how could you convict on that?
Important point here is that you should get an adverse witness charge against the prosecution for not calling the witness Weisselberg, who you admit is so important, and anyone else would admit that witness charge would be an adverse charge.
When she says adverse charge, she talks, she's so smart, she knows the law, but she doesn't break it down for the lay person. An adverse charge is basically telling the jury at the end of the case, when he tells them to go deliberate, he will tell the jury to think adversely as to what the prosecution has done. They have not proven this, and therefore you can't deliberate on it. Hold your breath if you think that's going to happen.
You, the jury, are free to believe that had the prosecution called Alan Weisselberg, that he would have testified against the prosecution. That's what should be done here.
That's what should be done, but we all know that's not going to happen. Do any of us know for sure that Donald Trump did the dirty with Stormy Daniels? I don't know, and I don't care. It doesn't matter. Doing the nasty with a woman isn't against the law. Having an NDA and paying compensation for a signature, that's not against the law either. If you want to mentally convict Trump of being sleazy towards some women, fine, have at it. But in this case, in this sham trial, there has been no crime proven. And anyone, and I do mean anyone, saying otherwise is lying to you. The mere fact that the Biden administration, many in the media, and many Democrat voters are relying on this case to kneecap Trump should tell you everything. To me, it means America is falling. Any Trump conviction on this trial will never stand. The appellate court will throw it out, and everyone knows it. There were two objectives with this trial. One kind of worked, is they wanted to get Trump off of the campaign trail. Number two, they want to get a conviction so you can hear it said 24/7 on every media outlet that Trump is a convicted felon. They're hoping if they can attach those words to Trump's name that a lot of voters will basically walk away from Trump. I don't see it happening. But let me be the first to say this if you haven't heard it, and I feel I speak for many of you as well. I don't care. Convict him. I'm still voting for him. You use this sham trial to try and kneecap this guy, try to put felon against his name, convict him for this stuff? I'm still voting for this guy. The fact that the Biden administration had to resort this low to use this kind of absolute bullshit to try and gain an advantage over Trump, that's pitiful, and you do not deserve to be in office. It just further confirms to me that I'm making the right choice. Just want to let you know it's time that we begin having that conversation. Well, Barry, what conversation is that? What will you do if Donald Trump gets convicted by this court? Does it change your vote whatsoever? Not mine, but I'd love to know in the comments what you think, and let me know if it changes the way you think about Trump and what you're gonna do when it's time to vote. Talk to you soon.